Okay. Two point two, one big word here. Logic. In my humble opinion, this is a lot of what geometry is and what it's trying to teach you. Okay? Is how to think about things. We're gonna use a lot of words you're used to hearing in um, that you're used to hearing in English. For instance, our first word we talk about today, statement. I think you've heard that word before, haven't you? It's a sentence that is true or false. Related to that, truth value. I don't know whether the statement is true or false. You guys could have probably guessed that one, huh? You understand what I'm saying? Now, here's the deal. We will use letters, or what's better yet, lowercase letters, to represent statements. As I've told you again, mathematicians are lazy. We might use P or Q. For some reason, when mathematicians started doing this or they started writing books, it's like the first one you always get is P or Q. And it makes sense. They probably don't, because what do we use lots of times for variables? X and Y, right? So they went with a different one for when we're representing a statement, P or Q. And that's so we can talk about things generally without having to write a statement every time. Statement P or statement Q. Negation. Is the opposite, and I'm going to put in parentheses the word not of a statement. So if you have a statement, let's call it P. The negation of that statement, we're going to use this little sign right here and write P. That means not P. If that seems weird, I don't blame you. But it's just a sign for a simple concept. Anybody funny? Let's see the new hot movie. The hot movie last week probably was what? No. Did anybody go see it?
Yeah.
Pretty scary, I heard.
Yeah.
Okay. I made this statement. Students that went to see it. What would be the opposite of that statement? Students that did not go see it. Right? I mean, that's a pretty simple concept, would you say? I think you've been doing that for a little while. Especially since at your age now, if your parents say white, you say black. If your parents say you know, pink, you say blue, or whatever it may be. Agreed? You kind of do the negation, right? Of course you don't. You're wonderful children who never talk back to your parents or ever argue with them. I'm sure that's all of you. There's no sarcasm on my voice there at all. Now, all kidding around, you guys know what a negation of something is. It's the opposite. A student did not go see it. What's the negation of that? Did go see it. That's simple. Pretty. So weird signs for pretty simple concepts, right? Okay. Next thing we're going to talk about, and like I said, the unfortunate thing is with a lot of this, it's going to be writing. What is called a compound statement. What do you think a compound statement is going to do?
A lot more writing.
Well, of course, a lot more writing, but what is a compound statement going to do? If you're compounding, when they say you're compounding your problems, what are you doing? You're putting another problem on top of something like that, right? That's what the word means. It's pretty much the same thing here. You know what we're going to do? We're going to, you wish they called it a combined statement. That would make a little more sense, wouldn't it? But it's a compound statement. Let's see. We join two or more statements with an and or a or. That sounds weird, doesn't it? With an and or an or. Basically, these are the things that combine them. I think you guys have used those words before in your life, haven't you? Conjunction. I'm putting quotes because, my italicized letters aren't real good. You can't really tell the difference, right? No. Conjunction is just and. Conjunctions are only true when both statements are true. What do you think disjunctions use? Or. Disjunctions are true when either or both statements are true. Now, underneath each, we're going to use a sign. Conjunction uses that sign. Disjunction uses that sign. So P, Q means P what? And what?
Q are true.
Well, it just means P and Q. The truth value is completely separate. P, V, Q means what? P or what? Okay, you don't need to write this down. I'm going to write down a statement. We're going to talk about the difference between the two. Coach Stump. So don't write this down because I don't want you. Coach Stump took out the trash and went to the movies. What's my P?
The first one on trash.
What's my Q?
Went to the movies.
So this is a statement P and Q, correct? To determine whether this is a true compound statement or not, what do I have to have done? If this is true, what did I do that day?
Took out the trash and went to the movies.
I had to do what? Both of them, right? However, if I took out the trash and then decided not to go to the movies, is this a true statement?
No.
See what I mean? Because only one of them, right? Does that make sense? Or let's say I went to the movies, but I didn't take out the trash. Is this a true statement? Is this the combination of those two true?
No.
No, it's not. Does that kind of make sense? How if you use and, then you have to do both, right? Both have to have happened for the whole thing to be true. With compound statements, we'll talk about each piece separately to determine what the whole thing is. Another thing, and what if I change that to or? This changes a lot, doesn't it? Now, let's say I took out the trash, but I didn't go to the movies. Is this a true statement? Yes, because on or, I only have to do what? One or the what? Make sense? So, what you do is you analyze each statement, find its truth value. So, if this is true and this is false, the whole thing is what? But if this was false and this was false, the whole thing is, right? If that was false and this is true, the whole thing is what? If both of them are true, the whole thing is. And then when you change and, everything changes, doesn't it? You guys get that? Okay. I'm going to get out some examples that we're going to work on. I want to go straight to the truth tables. Let me ask you something. And this is what they mean by logic. Okay? If a statement I said was true, if I went to the movies, right? What's the negation of I went to the movies? I did not go to the movies. Is it possible for I went to the movies to be true and the negation to be true too? If I say I went to the movies is true, is it possible that I did not go to the movies is true? On the same day. You can't kind of put, other factors into it, but I'm saying in this one day, if I went to the movies that day, is it possible that I did not go to the movies that day? If I took out the trash, is it possible that I did not take out the trash? So what do you think we can always say about a negation of a statement? It's always going to be the opposite truth value. So if a statement's true, its negation has to be what? If the statement's false, its negation has to be. So right here, you see how it's how this can be really simple concepts made to seem hard? In other words, right here, we're talking about P. The possible values for P and Q, when you make a truth table, first thing you do is you have each statement you start with. And you write down all the possible combinations of truth values. The first one could be true and the second one could be true, right? The first one could be true and the second one what? Or the first one could be false and the second one what? Or both of them what? See how we covered all the possibilities there? Once you've done that, now you just fill in the blanks according to what you're dealing with. So with returns to P, I completely ignore all of that when I'm doing the negation, don't I? Everybody understand that? So if P is true, what's not P got to be? See how easy that is? If P is true, what's not P got to be? If P is false, what's not P got to be? If P is false, what's not P got to be? Okay, done with that. So now not Q, we completely ignore what? P, and we focus on what? But if you kind of can't erase that from your mind, it starts to get confusing, seeing all these T's and F's all over the place, right? But just look at, and for now we can ignore that too, can't we? So when you just focus here, it's pretty easy, isn't it? When Q is true, what's not Q got to be? When Q is false, what's not Q got to be? If Q is true, what's this got to be? When Q is false, what's this got to be? See, and I'm telling you, where people have problems doing this is when all of it's sitting there like that. And you look across and your mind just gets jumbled because you see all these weird things here. But when you look at it piece by piece, and you'll find that's how it is in a lot of things in geometry, when you try not to look at 10 things at once, you do just fine. If you look at one thing at a time, put your phone on. Now, what are we talking about the union of? Or the disjunction of? So this is or. So does any of this matter anymore? The only thing I'm focusing on is the combination of these two right here, right? Well, if it's or, for the whole thing to be true, how many of these have to be true? Just one? Okay. So if the first one's false, the second one's false, what does this got to be? Because it's or, right? First one false, second one true. This is or, so what is this? First one true, second one false. True, true. See how kind of easy that is? But I'm telling you, when you do it on your own, it's not as easy, but hopefully me making these marks and kind of being able to kind of show you what I'm thinking of when you break it down into pieces, it's not so bad. Okay? The other thing that messes with people is when you do things like this thing down here. What does all this mean? Well, what you've got to do is you got to find, it's kind of like, you know, in order of operations and parentheses, you work inside out. You're kind of doing that here. Before you can talk about not P, you got to get P taken care of, don't you? Before you talk about not Q, you got to get Q taken care of. So I'm only going to be dealing with not P, P, and Q in the end, right? So I have to start out by taking care of all of these. So that's why you only see 3 here. You see, you start out with P, Q. You've got all your possibilities, right? What about not P? Cross that out of my mind. What's this? Here. 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 Okay, done there. Now, not PQ. So now get that out of your mind, right? This is or, right? So only one of them. So this is what? What's this? This. This. Okay, done there. Now, we're and. Okay? Corbin?
No.
Second hour, maybe?
No. First hour. Did you second hour?
Is Corbin in here? Is Corbin in this class?
No.
I think so.
Yeah, no. Okay.
All right. Now what am I dealing with? Now here's where it can kind of get confusing. You've got to define what to, I'm dealing with P, so that's here, and this compound statement here, so right here, right? So ignore this, and then look at your values, and it's and, isn't it? So true and true would be what? True and false would be false, because in an and, they both have to be true for the whole thing to be true, right? False and true. False and true. You finished this truth table now. Kind of crazy, isn't it? Now, on this one, they want you to make your own truth table. So you have to start from scratch, but you should be able to. What things am I going to need? P, Q, and not Q, right? So first thing, what are you going to always need? P and Q, and then I need not Q, right? I also need the compound statement of P and what? Not Q, and then I'll end with Q or P and not Q. We okay? You guys see how I got all that? Here's where sometimes I mess with people. It really doesn't matter what order you put these in, just that you take care of every possibility. You could have the possibility of both of them what? Then you could have the possibility of this one true and this one what? Then you have the possibility of this one what? And this one what? No, false, true, right? And then both of them what? Makes sense? Eyes up here. Don't fall asleep. Williams, wake up. Where I make sure I start writing this stuff down. So not Q. What am I dealing with? Not that, right? So this will be what? False, true. Now the combination of P and Q. Or not Q. So I get rid of that. True, false. It's and, right? True, true. False, false. Now I've got Q these two right here, right? True, false, and it's or, right? So this is what? False, true? One of them are true. True. And you're done with that. I know those can be a lot, but you guys can do them. Now, you're going to have to write things like this out. I'm going to expect you to write the problem. Guys, there is no abbreviating here. There will be a lot of writing. If they say P and Q, I simply need to write P down. What is P? 60. Now, you could do that. Equals 1 minute. And then what am I going to, what does this mean? So I'm going to write in a different color just so, and what's the other part here? And Q. So then I write down that congruent and use stuff like that for angles. This may look weird, but I want you to say, did I simply, how could simplest way I could describe the directions on things like this? Write that thing down, then use the word what? Then write the word and down, then write whatever that thing is. Do you see what I'm saying? That's pretty easy, isn't it? These parts are getting you used to, and you can see why you would want to write this and then write it like this, because who would want to write these statements? Think about if you were doing a truth table. Would you want to write down these statements every single time and then write which one's true or false? No. Yes, sir.
That's the answer. Should I write?
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Then find its truth value. Okay. So its truth value. So we got to find its truth value. We've got to find each part. 60 seconds equals 1 minute. Is that true? Congruent supplementary angles each have a measure of 90 degrees. Is that true? That is true. Congruent because congruent angles are the same and they add to 180. They have to be 90, don't they? So if you have true and true, what's the whole thing going to be? So you do actually have to have what? The truth value as well. I'm sorry. And you're going to have to write what is the negation of P?
60 seconds does not equal 1 minute.
How do you make that sign? Not equal. And then what are we going to put here? Or okay. So, truth value. First part here, is 60 seconds not equal to a minute? That's false because it is true, isn't it? Are congruent supplementaries? That is true, isn't it? But what's in between here? So I only have to have what? One of them true, so my truth value is true. Makes sense? What does Mr. Google say on 2.2? What is your assignment?
1 through 9, 11 through 16, and 25 through 30.
Now I want you to look at this. Write problems, draw figures, show all steps and work. If you don't write the problems out here, word for word, it's going to be a lot of writing. I'm sorry. I will give you a 0. Because this assignment is imperative that we draw a nice, I don't want to see truth tables that are 1 or 2 lines big. If you need paper, you can borrow some from me. I'll give you a piece of typing paper. But if you noticed, could I have given you, look at that. Could I have given you a lot more problems? This is like 20 again. which over the years, would you guys recognize that 20 isn't a lot of problems for an assignment? Now, you have today and you'll have tomorrow. Due at the end of the hour Wednesday. I'm worried because I was so lenient on when you had to turn that other stuff in. We're starting to get a pattern of thinking, oh, my grade's going to be okay, or I can turn them in when I want. You got to turn your stuff in, people. You got to write problems, draw figures, show all steps, and work. If I'm going to give you even if you don't grade and correct, if I'm going to give you a completion grade, you're going to prove to me that you are completing, that you are doing it. Just writing answers doesn't work. And I can tell the difference between those, that just forget to write the problems for some of the easy ones, but do it for some of the others and show all their work. That person's, even though it may feel like your paper isn't that much different than theirs, that person's going to get a lot more credit than you are. Those obvious, I'm going to do what I want, I'm just writing the answers because either I just now figured out it was due and I haven't done anything, turn it in, you're not going to get any credit. My job is to teach you this material. You can't learn it if you don't practice it.